Today we're talking about why the INFJ is seen as too intense. And we really have to look at it from a perspective of who is saying that you're too intense. Most of the time, people are not even saying it. You're sensing it. And this is actually the thing that we need to look at. It's not just a perception thing. Yes, you're definitely too intense to the people, not only that are saying it, but also the people that you're aware of are feeling this about you. So that is a given. But why is this happening? Is it something that we can change? Is it something that we should change? Is there something wrong with this? Are we really too intense? The answer is no, of course. We're never too intense. There's no such thing as being too intense because it's always a question of what you compare it to. If you would have the best athlete, of course, if you would put them next to somebody who's just average in their sports, yes, they would seem like greatly intense. If you have somebody who's really studious and is able to have great success in what they're doing, and you compare it to somebody who's completely lazy about anything they want to achieve in their life, of course, the first person would seem too intense. That being said, I'm not saying that the people who think that you're too intense are somehow bad or lazy or whatever it may be. What I'm saying is, though, that we're not tapping into our potential at that time. And if you're in a position where people think you're too intense or you perceive that that's how they view you, then that's an amazing opportunity to change something in your life and to actually reach a new height that you've never been able to reach before. Before we get started, remember bootcamp is starting this Saturday and up until this Monday. So tomorrow after airing this, you have access to an early bird price. It's an amazing opportunity. Join our group, join our system, and we're creating an INFJ epic life on our terms. All the information you find below. So back on topic, is that something that only happens to INFJs? Of course not. Every single personality type has some intensity to them. An ESTP is very intense in their extroverted sensing. An ENFJ, an ESFJ is very intense in their extroverted feeling. So why is NI such a thing? Why do we feel like people say this about us and not about other people? It's not really the case that I'm saying, oh, you think you're too intense and others are also seen as too intense. That's not the case. You go through life, you're not blind. You see that this happens to you more frequently than to other types, than your friends, your colleagues, whatever it may be. And if you think about it, it's very logical because what are our two strongest functions? The first one being introverted intuition and the second one, extroverted feeling. So extroverted feeling gives us two things. On the one hand, we can create an emotional atmosphere, but on the other hand, it also gives us an opportunity to understand others. So if you have an ESTP, for example, they live out their intensity right there and then. They're not as easily aware if they offend somebody with their intensity. So they're not dialing it down. See the difference? An ENFJ is so aware of all the emotional atmosphere. They have so much emotional energy at their capacity. They're not holding this thing back. FE is an extroverted function. It's about expressing. It's about creating an emotional atmosphere. So how does this play together with our NI? Our intensity is twofold. On the one hand, we have the capacity to hold our ground on who we are, no matter what is happening outside of us. We can do this because through NI, we put ourselves out of reality. We create our own system, we create our own world, and we can hold on to it much longer than most other types can because we can just detach from reality. We can just put ourselves sort of on the side and we become the observer. You've read this, you've seen this, that INFJs consider themselves and are considered by others as an observer. This quality gives us the chance to be intense because we can hold on to this image of who we are and who we want to be or who we want to be in a certain scenario for much longer without getting sidetracked by anything external happening. And then we can use SE in combination with FE to express this intensity, to express this image of who we are and what we want to achieve. And with experience, we learn that we can hold on to this. It's not just an energy thing, because if you would have an ENFJ or an ESTP, their way of expressing energy outwards is generally stronger than of the INFJ. That just happens by the fact that we're introverts. And on top of that, we have SE as our lower function. ENFJs, ESTPs, their SE is much stronger. It's much higher in their stack. So of course, when they express themselves, there's much more intensity. So why are INFJs considered so intense? It's because we can pinpoint it. So we're not only only able to hold on to our own image of how we see ourselves, how we see others, we can on top of that pinpoint a certain kind of energy that hits the other person perfectly where it hurts, where the other person has some kind of weakness or some kind of secret or something that they feel like nobody can understand. That's where our intensity happens. That's what we put out. We at that moment can use that energy that we have to create a truth that the other one perceives and is taken back, because up until that point they thought, okay, I go through life, I know everything that's going on around me, and I know myself. And then the INFJ comes around and suddenly they don't understand what's happening because you just unveil to them an insecurity that they might not even be aware of. So let's take this even a step further. So this is what we can do. Is this what we should do? And the answer is no. Yes, we can use this as a weapon. Yes, we can use it to show people what we're about. And in certain situations, we can also help people through that. We can impress people through that. It's a skill, but that's what we have to become aware of. It's a skill. It's not who we are. We can understand what people are about through our second function, FE. Our introverted functions allow us to hold on to a system, to hold on to who we are, not get sidetracked, and then express a certain kind of emotion we want the other person to feel. Remember, the second function is our creative function. So how do we come full circle if we get back to the point that I mentioned in the beginning, which is that if you consider too intense, it's always a question of who are you surrounding yourself with? Who are you asking? We dim our lights so often because we are aware that once we express our greatness, once we express our strength, our intensity, what will happen? The person will not allow you to see them for who they are. They will withdraw. They will not give you access to who they are, and therefore you won't have that power of, oh, I understand what you're about and I could use that. We very often use this as a defense mechanism and we're not even aware of it. But if you're in that position and you know the only reason why I'm considered too intense in that moment is because I've been keeping myself small all that time. Because what would have happened if you would have allowed your intensity to play out in your life? So I'm not talking about you yelling at another person or every person that you see, but the way you live your life is already out of the ordinary. That's where your intensity comes to play. If you really allow yourself your intensity to play out, it will put your life on a different level. Because think of all the people who are at the Olympics right now. Are the people that they're competing with, do they look at them and say, oh, that person is so intense in what they're physically doing? No, they know, okay, we're one league, we play, we interact, and we have similar values, and we're similarly intense in certain areas. I'm not saying that you will, once you express your intensity, come out at like the top of the world and whatever it is, but there are of course levels to this. I was talking about the Olympics just to make a point here. No matter where you're at, there's always a higher level to play at, and that's where your potential lays. And we have to get to a point where we allow ourselves to live out that intensity, because then all the people that consider you as too intense, they would just vanish from your life. You would just completely be focused on something else. You would play at the different league. You would go for different things in your life, and the people will just move away. They will not be part of your life anymore. I've seen this numerous times, and this is happening to us INFJs because we can omit that thinking we're protecting somebody else. This is of course an unhealthy thought process. I've done this multiple times throughout my life. This is not to be judgmental. Just become aware that you're not in control of how other people feel about themselves. If you have to make yourself small in order for another person to feel good about themselves, then it's a question of realigning your values. It can never be that it's a necessity for you to keep yourself small to make other people comfortable. By you going for your greatness, by you living out your intensity, by you doing something that's out of the box, you're automatically allowing other people to do the same. You're allowing them to make a decision of, do I want to step into that greatness myself? Do I want to tap into my intensity and live out my epic life? Or do I want to stay where I'm at right now? Every person has the prerogative to make that decision for themselves. You're not there to make that decision for others, so don't feel like you have to make yourself small. You got this. Remember, if you want to go for your INFJ Epic Life, then sign up for the bootcamp. Next round is starting on Saturday, and until tomorrow you have access to the early bird prize. All the information you find below. And if you want to watch another video now that is in alignment with today's topic, then watch the video on why the INFJ is first admired and then ghosted.